Hello and welcome to the podcast where we explore the world of audio storytelling with people responsible for creating enchanting experiences, whether that's linear narrative or actual play tabletop. I'm Oscar Clark, I'm he, him. I'm on a pod quest to learn everything you wanted to know about audio drama and actual plays, but never dared to ask. And today I'm joined by Thomas, who I happen to know and have known for many years. Thomas, for the rest of the audience though, please tell everybody who you are and what you do.
So I'm Thomas Bidaux, originally from France, living in the UK for 20 years. I run a business called IGO Partners that does marketing for video game, but also tabletop game. And I have that hat of doing a lot of crowdfunding, consulting for lots of people for video game, a little bit of tabletop.
I'd go further. I think over the indie dev community, you're the person who is the go-to for, oh my God, I've got to do a Kickstarter. How the heck do I do it?
I can help if that's you. Yes.
No, but I mean, you're very willing to give support and advice. And obviously, this is a professional function that you perform. Now, we're not going to talk about that bit particularly. I'm sure it'll come up because as we talk about the world of audio drama, particularly the financing of audio drama is somewhat challenging. But that's not what you do in the audio drama world. What I thought was really interesting, because we bumped into each other purely at random at UK Game Expo, and you mentioned to me that you do audio drama and have done for some years, but you do it in French.
Correct.
So most of the people I'm talking to, classic this language, but I'm keen to understand, how you got into it and what is the cultural difference when you're doing it to a French audience as opposed to the experience that we have as an English audience. So let's all start off. So you've told us a little bit about your function, your marketing, and kind of consultant support type person who helps video games people primarily, but also tabletop. But what got you into doing tabletop as a performance?
So I moved to the UK in 2004, right? So a bit more than 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And when I moved, quite life-changing, going from one country to another, from one language to another. And what I think I left behind is some of my hobbies. I left a number of my hobbies behind, and one of them was tabletop RPG.
Yeah.
And there is something in the tabletop RPG experience which is very tied to language. And as I moved, I was not very comfortable to play in English. But then over the years, I really missed it. But I missed two things. I missed playing tabletop RPG and I missed playing with my friends.
Yeah.
And as actual play became a thing, I became familiar with also like virtual tabletop on top of actual plays. And one of my friend who also is in that expatriate situation, he was in Germany. We started to do a game of D&D on Roll20. And then as I reconnected with my friends and with the hobby, I very much realized how much I missed both. And I tend to DM. I tend to be the storyteller. I tend to be the person running the games when I was playing TTRPGs. And so I really like that. And so I was like, this is really good. I'll do it. But as I was doing it, I went to that group of friends, two couples, interestingly enough. So now the one was in Germany has moved back to France. I think he went to Germany, and then he went to Amsterdam, and then he went back to France. And his spouse as well.
Yeah.
A bit of that for a while. And the other couple is in Sweden. So we are very multinational and
very culturally mobile.
Exactly. But also all love TTRPG and all love it in French. And all we can't really connect because we are so far from each other. And so it became kind of like our meeting up. And so as I was, recruiting for like, let's do a new campaign for that game and play together and all that, I was saying, but what if we record it and I put it on YouTube? Which is, all of us are suddenly now are we all there? 40 plus? We were like past our mid-30s and something like that. We are not necessarily
You're not
digital
young
natives.
whippersnappers.
Yeah, and we're not necessarily the people who kind of like grew up expecting YouTube be a thing, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily a supernatural thing, but everybody was game.
Yep.
No pun intended. And that's how it started, and that's how it continues to this day. And it's been 8 years. I was just checking the date.
8 years. 8 years.
Yeah.
So,
and
I mean,
yeah,
I think
so it's my home game.
yeah.
Just we also broadcast it.
It's a whole game that you happen to brought. And are you Twitch streaming it? Are you
No.
just YouTubing? So you're recording and then uploading?
We purely recording and uploading. I set up a Twitch account. I don't know if you know that. There is a Twitch account we could use. The logistics of us playing. Some of that logistic also being kids coming into the frame that we don't want to see in the final thing.
Yes. So you
we
can
want
still
to
edit.
have the ability to edit our content just
that
because
makes sense.
of that. We edit very little, but we do edit sometime. Kids walk up, kid needs parents' attention, comes into the frame. That's the only thing we edit, I think. That's the
No, that makes sense. But I mean, let's think about this in context. So, I mean, I think in the UK in particular, but generally, I think we underestimate how big games are in France in particular. I think the scene, particularly the comic book scene in France, is huge. Yes. Absolutely huge. I think the game scene in France is huge. I mean, I think probably Germany is probably the only place where the board game scene is bigger. Is that fair? I mean,
yeah.
Do you think we underestimate French passion about games?
So, I'll give you an anecdote that I find very telling.
Yeah.
Fresh from UK Game Expo, I had a couple of meetings there. I was mostly there to check out the games and everything. I did a couple of work meetings, and during 2 meetings, people said the same thing to me, which was, so I was asking Americans why they came to UK Game Expo. I thought it was interesting. I was asking someone else about their presence at the Game Expo, and both of them said, well, we're coming here because this is the 3rd biggest board game event in the world. The number 1 being Spiel, in essence.
Yeah.
Definitely, Germany's a very big board game market.
Very good.
Number 2 would be Gen Con in Indianapolis, in the US. And the 3rd one would be UK Game Expo. And a lot of them like, do you realize there's an event that's probably close to twice the size of UK Game Expo that happens every year in France?
Yeah.
Because there's the Festival International des Jeux in Cannes, which is interesting because people talk about the Cannes Festival. If you talk to anybody in the world, it will be the movie festival. If you talk to tabletop people, they think about that festival.
Yeah.
Right? It's same location, same palace, and same stuff.
And there are many other festivals in Cannes of a similar nature. I mean, I remember going to Midem, which was a big thing back in the day. I don't know if it's still going. Which was the kind of internet sort of technologies, media meets internet technologies session.
MIP TV was one as well.
MIP TV is another one I've been to a few times. I mean, there's again, I think this is. So, do you think this blinkers? Well, let's go into this.
I think there's a reason for those blinkers you mentioned, and I think that's. I think it's normal. Yeah. Because. So you and I come from video games, and video games have that kind of like porosity. Goes kind of like there's very little barriers for games.
Yeah,
to
there's a globality to games. Yeah,
people discuss, but the physical game, tabletop games, if the game is not localized, it will go nowhere. And there's certain games that are massive in certain countries that never actually took off somewhere else. So Germany, fascinating about the Dark Eye. You know about the Dark Eye?
No.
So. For a while, it's no longer true, but for a while, the biggest TTRPG in Germany was not D&D. It was the Die Schwarze Auge, the Dark Eye, which was like their local D&D, which like a bit more recent, like a few years after D&D, but massive over there, like tens and tens and tens of books. We got it in France, so I know it because I got it in France, but I know it didn't get much outside of those 2 countries. But it's something that anybody who's not familiar with the German scene would not know. and someone who's familiar with the 1990s French scene would know about, to be honest.
Yeah.
But there's nothing recent in France, right? So you would not do that. There's a number of games like that, and so that's true for tabletop games, for board games. But you have to take that an order of magnitude higher on tabletop RPGs.
Yeah.
Because these are books, they are very... There's like some
They're
literature
thick
around
books.
it.
Yeah.
It's very based around language, right?
Yeah.
As much as you like, oh, there's a board game with like, 10 pages of rule in English. I'll go and learn it and I'll do it. Fine. But when it's a tabletop RPG with a lore and
tables and dice
tables
rolls
and spells and stuff like that you have to kind of like memorize. If it's not in your home language, you're not touching it, right?
No, no, exactly.
And so,
but also manufacturing wise, the reproduction of a localization in a physical product is an order of magnitude different than trying to do it in a computer game where we just have a like spreadsheet basically. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but you know.
But there's friction, right? For things to spread and to be seen everywhere and things like that. And I think it's interesting because we're seeing more now tabletop RPGs kind of like cross borders.
Yeah.
But it's there's certain directions it goes in. Right? It goes from English to French more easily than it goes from French to English. Very much so. There's fantastic creators, tabletop RPGs creators in Italy. There's like incredibly interesting content being made in Italy. So it's interesting because, and I have my own bias. I'm not an expert in worldwide tabletop RPGs, but from what I've seen, there's more active scene in France and Italy than there is in Germany. Germany has more board games, but tabletop RPGs. There's a couple of very interesting products that come from there. There's good games as well. But there's not as much vitality to the homegrown scene than there is in Italy and France.
Whilst you're here, don't forget to check out our actual play, The Anything Could Happen show, on YouTube and all good podcast sites, where I put my guest players through no-win scenarios with limited information and always against the clock. And of course, where anything could happen.
Right, let's see if this thing's connected to the floor.
I am looking at some of the readings that I got off of the fossilized egg sacs. We might need more organic material to do some proper testing upon our return. So I would perhaps recommend that we might try to dislodge and take some with us. A sample of perhaps an egg sac or two would prove, I think, far more fruitful in really discovering what's going on here.
Yeah. I think these are movable, but they're real heavy. Can one of you help me with it?
It reminds me that because when Rennie Batsford was doing the Joe Diva Lone Wolf Choose Your Adventure game, and we were helping him try and do a Kickstarter on that, and obviously that was always a bit of a non-starter because we were trying to do a free-to-play mobile game with it as a long story. Anyway, the point though is the number of events they went to and the excitement they had. The primary country wasn't England that was interested; it was Italy.
Interesting.
The Italians were in love with it. And I think to me it just shows you there's these pockets of deep passion, which is very localized in ways that maybe other forms of games don't get so closeted, if that makes sense.
And it's difficult to understand from the outside where things have happened in the past and where they have a mark left on them. But it's fascinating because these play your adventure book, the fighting fantasy style stuff, they're spread very wide. We have them in France. We've seen Italy. There's been shows.
Ian's told me in the past, but I've lost track of how many languages that's been translated into.
Absolutely bonkers. And so, but they left a mark, right? And they have their own brainchild as well in many ways. So. It's fascinating. It is gems, and so go ahead. Sorry.
Well, no, it is exactly where I want to go. I mean, the thing what I'm trying to explore here is, and we'll get into this as we start talking about your kind of like movement into this as a performance and how you tell stories. But my impression is, it's not just about how the rule systems work. The fact that you're doing it in your native language with your friends. In that cultural context, I expect will be changing the types of stories that you're telling. Is that fair? What
And
is that? What is that difference?
so
Would you say?
so this I think this I think it's doubly true for the one we
Hmm.
run.
Yeah.
So, just for context, I have 3 TTRPG campaigns going on at the same time. Only one of which we broadcast, which
Yeah.
is the one we're talking about here. But I have
Yeah.
another 2, and both of them are D&D campaign.
Yeah.
And so, I can compare them from the one we broadcast versus the one we broadcast and how it changes things
Yeah.
a little bit. And I'll also talk about the games we play, because
Yeah.
we play a French game in my actual play versus an American game in the case of D&D.
Yeah.
And how it changes how we play. And then on
Yeah.
top of that, there's the, playing in French.
Yeah.
So I'm fairly fluent in English now. It's been 20 years, so thank God I'm not too bad at it now. And I think
I've never known you be you have a single flaw in all the time I've known you. It's all fine. Yeah.
it's all, and I think it's interesting because I think the British culture, in many ways, I think is more tolerant to imperfection in the language than the French culture. I think. So we can talk about all those different things, but in our case, because the game we play is called game. I said the French name, and then I'll translate. It's the Rêve de Dragon, which means Dragon Dream.
Yeah.
It's a fantasy game. It's like magic and Middle Ages and things like that, but it's relatively low magic.
Yeah.
And there is a strong Frenchness to the universe that we enjoy and relish in, and that is quite tricky to explain on what it is. But if I try to give it, it's like, so it's low magic. It's also low fantasy in the sense that there's not like, it's called Dragon's Dream, so you have to imagine you are travelers. You are a group of nomad. That's your adventure group. They go from places to places. There's reasons for that in the universe for them to travel. They have a supernatural call to go from one place to another. They are, if you want to retire a character, you say they lose the call and they stay where they are. But they have to move, basically, as part of the fantasy of the world. But there's not a lot of supernatural creatures. They exist, but they are infrequent. There's a few non-humans, but they're also not very frequent, and they are very grounded. The way they operate in the look, you don't have it's not like a superhero fantasy in many ways. It's kind of like we're talking about the rules don't impact, but there's a touch of the rules give you flavor. The combat in that game is very quickly fatal, and there's also something where we've been playing that campaign for 8 years. They've experienced characters. They are pretty good at what they do. But if I take the not the best fighting characters for lots of reasons, but the second best fighting character in the group, and I pit him against 3 peasants, 3 against 1, you die. It's very, very...
You just die.
You're going to die, or you need to get lucky very quickly, or they're going to kill you. 3 against 1 is not something you want to do. It's not swashbuckling. It's not superheroes.
Which is not ridiculous at all. I mean, in a D&D campaign, a 10th level character will take out 1,000 goblins, probably. Well, that's a different storytelling.
It's different
motif.
Fantasy, and it's different flavor, right? It's just the flavor.
Yeah.
But so there's that flavor. But there's also a flavor about your characters are special because they travel.
Yeah.
But the opposite is the 99% of the people you encounter don't travel, and they are very grounded in reality and whatever fantastic stuff. They don't care. They're a bit stupid. They have their day to day, but they're also happy. Don't mind, and that there's a bit of a very French vibe to the game because of that. Let's save the world. They rarely save the world, but let's solve the problem you are having, and they're like, whatever, I need to take care of my field. That tomato season is up. I need to pick them up, right? That's my problem, not yours. Whatever. Go away. But it's funny because there's kind of that, also that kind of awakened mind of those people traveling, understanding that the world in which they are is a dream, and they go from dream to dreams, and so the reality changes a little bit from place to place. That's why it's called Dragon's Dream. You are being inside the dream of a dragon.
Yes.
But for the normal people, it's just like, yeah, probably, but whatever. It could be the dream of a pigeon. That's a saying in that world. We don't care.
Yeah.
And that's very French, and I enjoy in the release that being in England to have that kind of like touch of a French sense of humor, French sense of not taking yourself seriously in many ways. That's kind of like funny, and so that's one of the reasons I started that game with that group of people and recorded also, because that's a game that's not being played a lot online. And I was like, that's an old game. Those are not very good. They are, but they're functional, right? But they are dated in the way late 1980s is the rule system.
No, I get that. But I think what you're hinting at with that, I mean, it reminds me a little bit like so Ella, my business partner, who lives in France, she lives not far from Karnak. I forgot the name of the chateau, but there's an amazing chateau there that has a whole section dedicated to Arthurian mythology.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting as someone who loves Arthurian mythology to see the difference in the way it's presented from the classical British perspective versus the French perspective.
Arthur, King of Britain, is not. It's not Great Britain. It's Brittany. You know.
And
Merlin has stuff in Britain.
Absolutely, and it's so intertwined.
Of course.
I mean, I think there's a historical argument that it's initially British, then came to the French, but it just feels so naturally French when you're sat in that space and you're hearing the context that I have no idea which is the real start, and I kind of like that.
So historically, we know, and as a French person, I won't say what it is, but that's true that Arthurian legends are adopted in that region in a way that's just matter of fact. Brocéliande, the forest not far away from where Ella is, that's Merlin's forest. That's a magical forest.
Exactly.
You can visit it. It has standing stones. They are associated to the Arthurian myths, to Merlin, to all Morgana Le Fay, which are interesting name, right?
Definitely. Well, Lancelot du Lac. I mean, it's like, come on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, even Thomas Hardy was using that language. I mean, admittedly, in that era, most of the nobility were probably French anyway, but that's another subject.
Norman, but yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Sorry.
Well,
Norman.
no. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're Norman, but they were speaking French, is where I was going from. But also, just think about that culturally. You're right in the middle of that whole Karnak region as well, with an incredible series of fields of stones that just row upon row upon row.
The power of that region in terms of history and what's going on there is incredible. So my wife's Korean. We went to Stonehenge, and she saw Stonehenge, and she knew what Stonehenge, and she was like, that's amazing. And then we went on holidays in France, and I said, let's go to Karnak. And then that's that whole field with hundreds of stones.
Hundreds.
And she looked at me, it's like, why have I not heard of this before? Why is Stonehenge something? Stonehenge is impressive, but there's standing stones in Karnak that are as impressive as Stonehenge in terms of size and movement. But the sheer number of them is incomparable. And I was like, well, I knew about it. I grew up in France. My grandmother's, when I went on holidays to a country house, was just like a stone throw from there. So I'm like, I knew about it, but it's true that internationally it's not necessarily as visible, but it's really, really strong. And that whole part of France, birth of like so many myths and legends that a great inspiration for this thing.
But there's a pomp and circumstance, that chivalry kind of mindset that imbibes a lot of what I understand as French mythology, or at least the levels of French mythology which leaked its way into the UK consciousness. Yeah,
the Gallant Knight. Yes,
I don't know where that's from.
I don't know if that's French. I accept it as being French because I grew up in that culture. But is it not? Doesn't exist as explicitly in British culture?
I think it does. It's just that there's a tonality about the kind of chivalry kind of mindset that I think comes into that, possibly actually influenced more by Napoleonic era, I suspect, than
Possibly.
actual mythology. But that, that's kind of what Victorians did, is they took these relatively modern things and made them mythology. My point though is more a case of that.
The flavor.
I think it's not just about being French. Obviously, this is about every single culture has its own bespoke set of contextual framing, and I find it fascinating when we can draw on cultural things. I'm not talking about cultural appropriation. I don't, I'm not, but to relish in other cultures' stories, I think is fascinating, and I think we make richer stories ourselves when we do that. With that in mind. So you're running this game, you're doing it as a friends group. How much are you considering the audience and the story that you're telling the audience?
It's an interesting question. And I would say for a good 80 to 90% of what we do, we don't.
Yeah.
It plays and runs as if we were playing just between us.
Yeah.
We do record. We do check the sound. We do say hi and bye at the end of the beginning of at the end of every recordings. There's one of the players helping me with the uploading and maintaining the YouTube channel, things like that. So there's some involvement. And so I think for my play, I don't know. It's a question for my players. It looks to me that they actually play the game, and they are not thinking about the audience. I know at the very beginning, so it's two couples. I know the two women in the two couples at the very beginning, the first maybe 10, 15 sessions. Well, like, wait, before recording, I didn't do my makeup. I'm not ready. And they were being careful. I know it's no longer the case. We don't care.
Yeah.
Very much so. About being, picture perfect or anything like that. I think the quality of the layout has degraded a little bit as well to make it easier for us to do. Degraded maybe a strong word. It's like I had like different scenes, and I would switch from like the one where we showed the dice roll to the other one. No, I don't care. I just want to play the game, and that's fine. On my side, again, 90% of what I do is purely I want to play with my friends. But I have maybe I have 10% of the way I think about my stories and the themes. I want that to be good for my friends, but also a little bit like inject a little bit my topics I'd like to see, or themes, ideas I'd like to spread around. And I'll be careful about, let's not talk about things that could upset people, like content warning, don't watch that because XYZ. We avoid some of those topics. And if I were in the home game, we probably would not tackle these topics at all, because that's not the fun we are into, for sure. But sometime in between friends, maybe you make a joke you shouldn't make. Maybe you there's a reference to something that's a bit fine because you're between friends and nobody's going to mind. Especially my friends, I know that we can have a very dark sense of humor. World War II reference, I was being French, being invaded by Germany. I think we earned the right to make jokes about it. I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we make jokes about it, and I think you've got more right than we do.
I do think we do. I think it's fine to make jokes about it. But so I know we are careful about. We have been to be friends, but we'll make that joke into the other campaign where we're not doing that. But in terms of the storytelling, the first audience I tell a story to, 100% my friends. But there's a secondary audience, which is all those people I don't know, and with whom I'm like, hey, maybe you want to think about these things. I had a story about identity and what it means to be someone who doesn't identify to who they are physically, for instance. So it's been a thread into the first 2/3 of my campaign or something like that. It was a thin thread with something. We talk about memory and losing memory, and we talk about, in that game, there's if you die, it's not necessarily the end of the world, because
Well, you're in a dream.
You're in a dream. So
Yeah.
but another version of you awakens somewhere else.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the memory of what you've done, but it's still the same person. So you can't really die, except there is somewhere where the dream stops. If you step there, you disappear everywhere. And so we've tackled that what it means to really die in a world where you can't die.
Yeah.
And having someone on the kind of like one of the climax of one of the story was like there's someone they have to throw into that limbo space.
Yeah.
For story reasons. And it took them, I think, 3 sessions to do it because they didn't want to. They were troubled. And so the story was told for my friends first. But I was also kind of like, that's a good story to tell to other people. I think it's an interesting story to tell.
Yeah.
So that's how I approach it.
No, I think it's a great way of looking at it because, I mean, at the end of the day, what you're saying is that you're not just sitting there. So, again, this is something I can get fixated on the cultural, contextual differences and how it affects storytelling. That's something I happen to enjoy. But what you're reminding me is that sometimes everybody has a story to tell anyway, stories that are applicable everywhere, like that whole principle about, how you identify as a person. Now, there are so many different angles that we can tell that story, and it can be what's become politically difficult with JK and all that kind of stuff, but it can also be simpler than that in terms of what is that classic Joseph Campbell farmer. Is it simple that it's just a person who happens to not feel like they're the same person that they seem to be to other people? I think there are extremes, not extremes. There are different levels to tell very similar stories, and I think it's interesting when we express that kind of issue. So let's talk about practically. So it sounds to me like you're doing things very simply. You're playing online. Are you with the couples? Are they sharing a room? Are they sitting in separate rooms? Are they sharing a camera? Sitting separate cameras? How are they doing it?
So everybody has their own computer, their own camera system, and their own audio system.
Yeah.
So one couple always sit in the same room because it's their home office, and that's the setting that's their life. The other couple, because of their living arrangement, sometimes in the same room, sometimes not in the same room. It really depends.
Yeah.
Sometimes one of them doesn't have the camera, and so we just record with a placeholder image or something like this. I like to have the people face and reactions. I think that's actually something that's more important to me than the dice rolls or the maps or anything like this. But it was not the case at the very beginning. Very beginning, I was like, we need everything. Now I'm more like, the more interesting thing is actually seeing each other's faces. Also because there's so much that's told without speaking. So I did a twist on my players a couple of sessions ago. That was years in the making, right? We did the first story a long time ago where I invited a guest player. And before I invited him, I said, you want to try Roll20 from a technical point of view. He played the same game as us. He's a good friend. He'll do that one story with us, and then he will go. And then he came in, played maybe 8-10 sessions with us, which is, good. And then we finished the story. At the end of the story, kind of betrays them, and they decide like they're going to chase him and look for him throughout these different dreams. It's a world is different, very difficult to track someone down when you can move from one reality to another by accident. And so they did that, and then that session, I brought him back, and they didn't know he was coming. And that's where the tool of being online. If you want to do that around the table, right, and you're on a home game. My friend would be like in the cupboard waiting for like, I need to wait for him to tell I'm appearing. It's going to be another hour. Whereas like here it's just like, oh, wait a second. Send a message on Discord that says now is the time, and then he appears. And the face reaction. The face reaction was amazing. Yes. But some were like in character, angry and pissed. And one of them was just laughing her ass off because she thought it was such a good joke on them to make that character appear at that specific point. Especially, he appeared, they'd been teased as that character that's like a certain personality. You need to meet him. And then they see it's that guy. It's like, this is not the personality we know at all. It's the opposite of this. So that he came to incarnate that character. And so that's great. As a tool.
It's marvelous.
As a tool,
but it's something you
being able to
can't
do
do.
this.
Yeah,
No.
you couldn't do, like you say, in a tabletop game without causing some level of extreme discomfort, essentially.
So I started playing tabletop RPG very young. I started at 8, and that's
Younger
been my
than me.
that's been my heart hobby.
Yeah.
For my whole life, right? I really like that. I like that modern board game or video games and everything like that. That TTRPG is my tradition.
I started playing D&D age 10.
And so when I had to stop, one of the reasons I had to stop was like, I can't play online. It has to be played around a table.
Yeah.
And then I had to miss it for 10 years.
Yeah.
To say like, no, I need that. It doesn't matter if it's not around the table. Digital is a lesser evil. I'll take it because I miss it so much. But actually, it's almost like a different experience. It's not superior. I think if I had to choose, I would prefer to play around the table over online. Also because I would see my friend face to face more, right?
Yeah.
But there's some things you can do online you can't do in the physical space. It's easier for me. I never played with minis in my life, but I've played with battle maps and tokens on Roll20, and I enjoyed it. You know, it's much more accessible. I don't have to paint for one because I can't paint or shit. You know.
Yeah. I can't
then
paint shit either.
You can do things like I've done things that I don't know if they've seen it. I don't know if I share that podcast to them, but I've went into the inventory and added stuff in the inventory. Or I also have removed stuff from the inventory. I've done both of that.
Yeah.
Different groups. Where because I have access to all the information, and then they say like, "Oh, where's that item?" It's like, "Oh, I have it." It's like, "Do you?" Well, yes, I have it. They look at the inventory like, "I can't find it." Like, you don't have it.
You don't
They've
have it.
been pickpocketed or something like that. And also change
Love
items
that.
like an item has evolved from one state to another magically.
It's so mean, but it's also so narratively. So, I mean, I never had a problem with doing digital. I just never got round to it. The issue I had was just too much work. And when I was traveling for the evangelism roles, Unity and various other things, you just didn't have that reliability of being available. But I love, particularly with the way I do my Anything Could Happen, I love the fact that I'm doing, saying as little as possible during the session as the referee. And I'm revealing information to the players so they can reveal it to each other. And I think that makes it a much more compelling thing to watch at the same time. But even if it wasn't, the fact that I can direct a piece of information to somebody without other people knowing that's what I'm doing, that has an electric effect on the process. Yeah, totally. Okay, so you with the Roll20 and so on and so forth. And I've used a thing called Above BTT. There's others out there. There's so many. I interviewed a team making a platform, a BTT platform, not that long ago. What I find hard is that I'm an improvising referee, so I do zero prep when I'm doing my home games. So I'm having to go find a map, put it in when I need it, rather than what a sensible person would do, which would be prep. How much prep is involved for you?
So I DM 2 games. One I broadcast, when I don't broadcast. The one I don't broadcast, I tell my team, my group, I don't prep. It's not exactly true. Sometimes I will prep something because there's something iconic.
Yeah.
But the one I record, surprisingly, I don't prep much more for it. So there's one nice thing is that game and we play has a lot of pre-written content. I just take that and then improvise around it. I've read it a couple of times. I know I'm good for that. Maybe that's prep. You know. The prep I do is, because our sessions tend to be like 2 weeks apart from each other, is I project myself into, what if they do X, what if they do Y, and start to kind of like mind map different paths and try to think of like, oh, if they do that, would it be funny if X happened? and then I don't write it down or anything like that. It's just like in the back of my mind, I try to kind of like create like a web of interesting scenes,
Yes.
and that's what I anchor in. So that's my prep is going to the swimming pool and swimming, and then you don't have anything to. I love swimming. When you swim, you don't have a lot of. You can't read a book. You can't do much.
No.
And so I just like think about all work, life, thing like, and my games. I'm like, oh, what? And so I because we are also like having couples is great because they are either both available or they are not available, both of them at the same time. So
Yes.
it makes organizing the game like if I had a group of
Slightly
three.
easier.
My group is 5, but it's like we were 3 in terms of organizing. And
it's such it's just so in order to get 4 people simultaneously available for my thing, because it could be any of those, any 4 people, because it's such self-contained pieces, I've got to have like 30 plus people to be able to get 2 episodes a month, or 2,
Yeah.
one recording session a month, possibly 2.
Yeah.
It's I mean, it's the biggest bane of anyone making audio drama, I think.
This is where, because we are playing our game first, we have not set ourselves a regular rhythm of recording and broadcasting. Whenever that, and we had probably like a year and a half where we played, recorded, but didn't broadcast. We didn't upload on YouTube for various reasons because I was busy and I couldn't do the slight editing we needed. This is when the player Antoine volunteered to help me do that kind of stuff. And it's funny because a year and a half later, people were like, "Yeah, they're back." I'm like, "Oh, there's people watching this."
Yeah, I mean, just out of interest, how much of an audience do you have at the moment?
So at the beginning, I was doing it right. I was like, every time there's a post,
push,
I put something on Twitter, I put something on Facebook. There was a couple of forums, like actual places. Now we just publish on YouTube, and we don't do much more. And so it's the sequel conundrum, right? The first video is going to have more views than anybody else.
Yeah.
Anything else we have, and then if I look at my first episode, my God, we have 2,800 views.
Yeah. And this is for something you did because you thought I'd throw it up. Yeah.
And the most recent stuff we have, the average is probably more like 50 views. So we have like 50, 60 people watching the stuff we do regularly, probably. And they have comments, and we know them, and we talk about it, a little bit. So I do that interaction. Whenever there's a comment, I reply to it. I acknowledge it because that's
nurturing a community like that. I mean, your intention is that this is your private game that you're sharing.
Yes,
if I've understood correctly, and I think that frames a different kind of community. But at the same time, there's a bunch of people who are excited to find out your stories, and I find that engaging.
I love actual plays. I've watched a lot of them. I watch French ones. I've watched English ones. I watch American ones. That the fact I'm bilingual means I can
you get all the choices.
Content. That's very nice. And it's interesting because you have some actual plays that are produced, and where there's a good dynamic on the screen, but it's not the same as when you have friends playing together.
Yeah.
And that's the content I like a little bit more. And that was the defining moment where well, if that's what I like, this is what I'm going to do, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because so Critical Role, I've watched a lot of Critical Role.
Yeah. Same here.
And I think the formula of Critical Role, the reason it works is because they are both. It's both friends playing together and well produced. And I think a lot of people try to replicate their formula, missing the first element. They're all friends playing together.
I mean, as I've said before, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying it again, I got kind of to the point where I was out. I enjoyed what I had. I may well go back to it. I'm told the third season is great, but I got to the stage where I was less interested in the actors and the story as a result, personally. But I know that a lot of people love that. But what I like is where you have challenge and dilemma, and you've got significant narrative arcs that are about wider questions about humanity. That's just my Ponzi bias. And not saying that Critical Role don't do that, by the way. I'm just saying that that didn't come for me. But there's such a range of amazing storytellers out there, and that's kind of the reason why I want to do this podcast. I want to understand each of the different takes on this genre, all the way from scripted narrative. I was talking to Emily and Chris from the Dex Legacy yesterday at the time of recording, and they were talking about how they pulled together this very structured scripted narrative. And I happen to have Emily occasionally play on my game, which is this not unscripted, but it doesn't have scripts. It has briefs, and it's all improvised, and it's all constrained in a moment. And that's very different from what you're describing, which is a more classical game that happens to be recorded. And to me, they're just really interesting ways of telling different stories.
I think it is storytelling.
Yeah,
it's just different. Different flavors of storytelling. It is 100% storytelling. And that's why I like TTRPGs, because we do storytelling together, And how often in a game do you have a player doing something you actually never expected?
Yeah.
How you expect, like, why they hate that? Like, they hate that NPC.
Yeah.
Oh my god, but I like that guy.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's taking everything in different. Well, maybe I'm not going to help him and save him, and it's going to go wrong. Or, oh my god, this is the villain. They're making friends with the villain. Oh my, but no, he's horrible. Why? Okay, they tried to redeem the guy. Well, maybe we should go it that way and see how it goes.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love that.
It's frustrating, but also very satisfying to basically let the player roll with certain things. And oh my god, there's sometimes also like this. I like to something I really like with my players.
Yeah.
And I don't think they like that. It's not unusual. I give them like a moral dilemma.
Yeah.
And there's generally no good answers in my book. Like there's no like.
That's how it should be, as far as I'm concerned. It's not a dilemma if there's a good answer.
Yeah, and sometimes I have an opinion, but sometimes I just like, I don't know, it's all wrong all the way. It's just like, just pick what your characters would do and I'll be fine. And sometimes you know, after the campaign, after the scenario is like, did we fail? Did we lose? I'm like, no, you did your thing. It's all good.
Yeah.
If you had done it differently, it would have had different consequences.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not going to like the consequences you're having now, but don't be afraid the fact that the other consequences would have been equally unpleasant, because that's how you a story progress through quote unquote conflict, right? Because it doesn't have to be could be like soft conflicts. I love making a story where I ran a game. Have you ever played Earthdawn?
Oh yeah,
Earthdawn, the Shadowrun but fantasy side things. Oh, I love that setting. And I ran a scenario where the story was very, very, very mundane, right? And it all started with like this kind of like a how you say that in English? There's a laundry shop that is haunted. And they're like, really? And then, there's probably something like, no, it's just like some stupid guy with magic powers playing a prank. But it unfolded into something really mundane. I think the lady married the guy, another guy, and he got jealous and he started to mess with them, right? But the way it was presented was kind of like, there's like a supernatural phenomenon, there's like monsters.
I've got Scooby-Doo vibes here.
Yes. Very much Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that story.
Yeah.
I think one of my players hated it because he was like, I'm here to kill dragons. I'm like, what? It's a prank? I'm being pranked? I'm like, not you, but everybody else, yes. And so I like kind of like going different levels and it's great, but it's yeah, I don't know why we're getting into that direction, but
No, no, but
this is such a
it's
lovely
all
thing to
about
do.
looking at ways we can tell stories and how the fact that you have. So normally I'm talking about the impact that dice rolling has on
Oh,
choices, but what you're describing, I think, is actually just as interesting, which is when the referee is adjusting to the choices made by players to give consequences to those choices.
so there's interesting things here. The effect of going from around the table to online and from online to broadcasted.
Yeah,
I don't ask as many dice roll as I used to.
yeah,
And I think it's for a better game because my other games where I don't record, I also do not as many dice roll.
yeah,
Because when you are in the context of broadcast, the time you lose about, oh, I need to do this, open the dice roll, interpret it, where's the thing? You kind of lose momentum. Like the Critical Role is doing an abridged, abridged version of their campaign where
yeah.
they edit out a
All
lot
the
of the
dice
dice rolling.
Yeah.
Right? There's some episodes they reduced like by 50% because there's
Yeah.
like comments that went. And so it also made me, I think, I'm better. I think you used the word referee. I use DM because I'm used to that. I like the storyteller
Yeah.
nomenclature
Storyteller, DM,
from Wall
Game
of
Master.
Darkness.
Yeah,
Yeah. But it made me a better game runner, right? In the
Yeah.
sense of now when I ask for a dice roll, there's a reason.
Yeah.
And it could be a mechanical reason. Do you hit the guy to kill him? But there's also like storytelling reasons. Like and if it's like, oh, normally if you succeed or not, you would have a dice roll. But it's like in the story, I know it's not incredibly relevant. I know you're really good at that. You ask me if you see something, yes, you see the thing, right?
Yeah.
And then we move the story forward. It's much more important to move the story forward. But the other side of that is like every time I ask for a dice roll, I try to apply what is the consequences? What's the consequence of succeeding? What's the consequence of failing?
exactly.
And there's a number of times where I'm like, oh shit, they fail. What does that mean? I don't know. Because I asked the dice roll as an habit, as mechanical rules habit, rather than a storytelling a tool.
It's interesting you say that because I
and
look at
that's-
it. I do it slightly differently. I'm often. By the way, I do think that's a very, very good technique, and I should probably do that more. But one thing I like about having a dice roll is I now pass the totem to that person.
I do that too. There's also like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Rob, you fail. Good. I improvise on that. I don't always have mapped out the consequences. But there's a number of times where I'm like, no, rolling the dice here is not a story moment. It's not so let's just flow with things.
But equally, so one thing I've been doing lately is when someone's in a bar, I will get them to roll a Constitution save when they're drinking something, and give them a weird temporary bonus if they pass and a weird temporary minus if they fail. So I make the act of being in the inn meaningful.
I'll give you a slight tangent. Explain something about that game we play, the Dragon's Dream game. So you can use magic. The magic is basically you enter into kind of a trance.
Yeah.
You go into a different plane of existence that exists in the dream that's closer to the dragon that's dreaming you. And casting a spell is like modifying reality by telling the dragon, oh, it would be good if that person fell asleep, and then you do the thing and then sleep spell or things like that. You can't remodel reality because you're really weak as a wizard, but you do that way.
Yeah.
And the way you pay for magic is twofold. One is this magic points called dream points, and then there's also like there's more consequences to that. Without going too much into details, once in a while the dragon doesn't like what you've done with them.
Yeah.
And
This takes me so far back into the old school RuneScape. No, not RuneScape. RuneQuest. Old school RuneQuest. Chaosium's RuneQuest, where dragons were mountains. And they were, and this is very tied into back. It would take us full the way back to Arthurian style legend, where the dragon is the country, and we are living in their dream. And this seems so resonant to me. But we are at a point where I'm going to have to say come to an end. But you want one more thing?
I'll just finish with that. They do
Go for it.
something that's is a plot device as a tool for storytelling, which is great. So the dragon's not happy. They push back, but they push back on a mental level, and you get a quirk.
Yeah.
And so you have to do something weird. And so one of my players had to, you roll 2d6, 7. You have to break 7 eggs. And so suddenly out of nowhere, there's a story advancing, and then they're like, no, we stop everything and we go to the shop over there because I need eggs. And I'm like, what? And then they buy the eggs and they break them in front of the people they bought the eggs from. You're like, the people are like, why are you breaking my eggs? I know you paid for them, but now I'm upset because you know you're wasting good food. And then suddenly your story goes in a tangent because someone wanted to do a bit too much magic, you know. And that's a lovely storytelling device that game has baked into that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And your story about drinking and having side effects to drinking brought me to that. And that's something that's very funny, very nice.
These are the kind of techniques that any great DM will find that in their little armory of tools, whether that's to pass the time, as in to give them time to prepare the next thing, or to change pace to give people a chance to sort of get their heads together for the next thing, whatever it might be. And we all have, I don't know about you, but I have the shopping episodes where people basically decide to spend the whole session just shopping because they like to do that for some reason. And I think this is hopefully what people have got from this is that there's such an array of different ways of telling stories through games. And yes, we might use VZTs, yes, we might use dice, but sometimes it comes down to the response of the storyteller, the narrator, the DM, whatever we're going to call them, to the decisions that the players make. And that expression allows us to tell stories in a different way from whether we would do it in a scripted piece, a devised piece, or maybe some other kind of form of classical gameplay. And I think that's a delight, and that's for me what captures the range and joy of this kind of audio storytelling medium.
I love
it. Thomas, thank you so much. If people want to find out more about you, and we didn't even get to talk about Kickstarter stuff, which is probably for the best. But anyway, maybe you will do that another time. Thomas, if people want to find out more about what you do, what's the best way for them to do that, and how do they find your sessions?
So my sessions, the channel is called Miroir d'Hypnose.
And we'll put that in the show notes so I don't have to spell it.
Yeah. And my account on socials and anything like that, it's probably best to find me on Blue Sky, and it's icotom, ICOTOM, .icopartners.com, which is my company. But if you type icotom, you'll find me on Blue Sky.
Perfect.
That's the best way.
Thank you very much for that, Tom. It's always a pleasure catching up with you. And hopefully I'll see you again soon. I'm sure we'll be seeing each other in Develop in a few weeks from the time of recording. And on that note, thank you very much for listening. So we've been talking about storytelling and the impact of dealing with different language and different context, but also there's these common threads that run throughout, regardless of the culture, regardless of the language. And let's not be blind to other cultural storytelling elements. But at the end of the day, we are engaging with our audience and our players to create experiences. And our players might be actors if it's a scripted piece. It might be our friends if it's a game. And I think keeping that thing that Thomas said earlier, that keeping the context of that relationship, that harmony, that sense of belonging can often be a critical part of what makes the role play. On that note, thank you very much. If you've enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, share, do all the other stuff. And we'll be back again soon. We'll be talking about more people who are making amazing audio story experiences. Thank you very much.